Are you ready to take full control of your physical, emotional, and spiritual health? Are you ready to experience great success in your life? Health Talk with Dr. Diane, MD, will teach you the tools and strategies to help you take control of your health and inspire you to live your best life. Now here is your host, Dr. Diane A. Thompson, MD.
All right, so welcome to another episode of Health Talk with Dr. Diane, MD, and I am so excited. We have today, my guest is Dr. Ted Barnett, and Dr. Barnett is the founder and executive medical director of Rochester Lifestyle Medicine, and we'll talk a little bit about that to see what exactly is done there. And this is in Rochester, New York. That's correct, right?
Correct. Yeah.
All right. And Dr. Barnett, you're described as the high-tech doctor with low-tech solutions.
Right. Right.
And you are one of over 200 physicians who is recently board certified in lifestyle medicine. And I'm actually one of them too.
You're one of them too. That's congratulations.
Yes. Congrats to you as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
So welcome to our show. I want to go back to this. What do you mean you're a high-tech doctor with low-tech solutions?
Well, so one of my day job is as an interventional radiologist. So in 1984, I was board certified in diagnostic imaging, which is basically radiology. And then I specialized in doing angiography and other procedures that are image guided, but there were no boards given until 1995 in interventional radiology. So I took the inaugural boards in interventional radiology, vascular and interventional radiology in 1995. And unlike the first boards I took in 1984, you have to renew them every 10 years because all the boards that are taken after 1990, which I'm assuming are your boards too,
Yep.
You have to do them every 10 years.
Yes.
So exactly. So the interventional radiology boards I've done now 3 times. And 22 years later, they gave the inaugural boards in lifestyle medicine. So I took those and fortunately passed. And as did you. Congratulations. And so now I'm board certified in diagnostic imaging, which is basically, radiology, and then interventional radiology. Now, interventional radiology, a lot of people don't know what that is. We do image-guided procedures. So one of the things we do is angiography and angioplasty. So cardiologists do the hearts, and of course they get all the credit. We do the rest of the body. So we do legs, arms, dialysis fistulas, kidneys. I don't do brains and necks, but some of my colleagues do. So it's basically anything that's image guided. So we do a lot of biopsies. So today I was doing breast biopsies, and I've drained a lot of gallbladders and abscesses and things like that. So we do anything that requires some kind of image guidance, and it tends to be sort of minimally invasive surgery.
Okay.
Okay. And then, so that's the high-tech part. The low-tech part is most of what we treat in medicine, and including what I do, is completely avoidable if people would just take better care of themselves. So one of my tools is the angioplasty balloon. The other tool is broccoli. So
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And the broccoli is so much less expensive.
Exactly. It's much better.
You don't have to deal with the procedure, right? There is so much.
That's right.
Yeah.
The main problem with broccoli is there's no good placebo. So you can't do double blind research. People know when they're getting broccoli or if they're not getting it. So
that is true. That is true. Why go from lifestyle, or I should say radiology to lifestyle? I mean, what's the connection there?
Sure. So in 1991, which was now 27 years ago, like any good parents, my wife and I decided to perform an experiment on our children, and we became vegan. So we had 2 little girls at the time, and our son was not yet born, so he's been vegan since before birth. He's 25 now. And we believed that it was the ideal diet, and we thought, we've got to prove it. So we'll do the experiment on our kids. And they're still around. In fact, I've spent a fortune in tuition checks studying into the best colleges in the country, including, Oberlin, Colgate, NYU, and Yale. And our son just graduated from Yale. They're all musicians, so it seemed to work. Yeah.
That is awesome. And I'm actually glad you said that, because one of the things we found is we'll go out. I do a lot of community work because like you, I know the power of broccoli and a lot of those other foods, right? I do a lot of community work, and people will often say, because they are under the impression that for children to be healthy, they have to eat meat and, that sort of thing. So it's actually interesting that your kids benefited from your vegan lifestyle. Did you have any challenges in introducing them to certain foods or any of that?
Well, not that much. For one thing, they were pretty little at the time, so they didn't have a whole lot of choice in the matter. And Nathaniel wasn't born yet. The challenges, I think, came a little later when they were going off to school, and they had to deal with, what goes on in schools and the school cafeteria, that type of thing. But fortunately, our kids went to a public school system that's very diverse, and they were considered another kind of minority, basically. And so, oh yeah,
who knew that your dietary choice would make.
So everybody was really careful to be nice to them, and it was really kind of sweet. It's just great. So I think we're very fortunate in that regard.
That's awesome. So we've established that kids can do quite fine
Absolutely.
On a vegan diet.
Yeah. I mean, I do know that people who start when their kids are a little later, there's certainly issues around that.
Yeah.
And, you and I could talk about that if you had time.
Sure.
Right.
In terms of for yourself though, so did you notice any difference in your own health and how you felt when you made this change?
So I've been pretty athletic all my life. I've always been a runner. So my health is, I would say that it was a little easier to keep the weight off. I've never actually had a real weight problem, although generally speaking, right around the holidays, I would always put maybe 5 or 6 pounds on, and then kind of work a little hard, a little bit in January to get that off. And that doesn't really happen anymore. So I've never really had a weight problem, but I would say that it's probably improved a bit because of that. But I've always had, I've got plenty of energy. It's hard to know because I started a long time ago and I wasn't really feeling sick at the time.
Right.
Right. I know a lot of people do have tremendous benefits when they, are doing it because they feel sick.
Yeah. So I see that you made this change for your own health, for your family, and you're, going in this way of being a vegan. Mm-hmm. What made you decide that you wanted to share that with other people?
Great question. So, we first made the decision to do it back in 1991 after I read the seminal work of Dean Ornish. And, he's the one who described how you could reverse heart disease, with lifestyle and diet, as you know. Mm-hmm. And I was really convinced. And one of the things that he also had a book, which I read. And one of the things he talks about in his book is how difficult it is to get research dollars for anything to do with lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And it kind of made sense. I had what I call a sloping forehead moment, like this. And, right. So I basically had to then become an expert because people were always challenging me. Well, what are you doing? And what are you doing with your kids? So, in order to feel like you're doing right by your kids, you have to learn a lot about it. So I did a lot of studying on it. And probably in the late 90s, I began giving lectures, grand rounds and things like that, because people asked me to do that. Mm-hmm. So I had a very well-developed lecture, 1-hour lecture. And then about 6.5 years ago, someone said, we were persuaded to give a course on it. So my wife is a former professor. She has, in addition to her law degree, she has a PhD in English. And she's also an expert in this. So I said, Carol, I need to put together a series of lectures. I'm good at doing keynotes or PowerPoints, but I'm not sure what material I should cover. So a day later, she handed me this outline. She said, here's the syllabus. Just flesh it out. So I took the syllabus, and there were basically 6 separate 2-hour lectures in there, which we've divided each one in half. So now there's 12 hours. So I teach this course that's 12 hours of actually CME. It's accredited through the University of Rochester. And from that, I kind of got launched into teaching people how to do it. And initially, it was not accredited. I just wanted to see if anybody would come. And we did it at the local Jewish Community Center, and 75 people signed up. We maxed out. And now, generally speaking, it's usually about 45 or 50 people who sign up, and we've given it 15 times now.
Oh, wow.
So we're giving it now to, there's 670 people if you count the current class of 50 people. And it's just, basically that was kind of how I got started in teaching it. And also I've been to a lot of conferences. We used to go to Vegetarian Summerfest. We still do. In fact, have you ever been?
No, I haven't been to that one.
You'd love it. It's really fun. This year will be our 23rd year in a row.
Oh, wow.
And that's where I've met all the bigwigs like Esselstyn and Colin Campbell. And I've watched them give the same lectures over and over and over, which you would think would be boring. but actually it's really helpful to watch other people teach.
Yeah.
So it's not like I learned any new material. You always learn a little bit of new material, but the most important thing is to hear how they explain things and then how they answer questions. So I feel like I've developed, and that's probably happened to you as well.
Yes, yes.
You've been teaching this for a long time, and you learn what certain people need to hear in certain situations, and I guess it just sort of happened. So,
yeah. No, well, I'm glad you're out there sharing this information. I wanted to go back. So if someone is listening in wanted to take this course, or even someone interested in lifestyle medicine looking at the CME, how would they go about?
So if you live in Rochester, New York, or the area, and you want to, we basically give it 2 or 3 times a year, and you can go to our website, which is rochesterlifestylemedicine.com or rocklifemed.com. And you can see it live. There are the whole course has been taped, and it's on YouTube, and you can watch it for free. My consultants tell me that's silly. I should be charging, but it's 2 years. The lectures that are up there are now 2 years old, and they haven't updated them, but they're basically the same. And so yeah, if people wanted to follow that, they certainly could. But there's
having it out on YouTube, if someone watches it for free, I believe in good karma. So
exactly.
it'll come back. Don't worry.
That's really how I feel.
Yeah.
We have to get it out there.
Yes, absolutely. So now at Rochester Lifestyle Medicine, because we talked about this, your day job is as a radiologist.
Right.
So what are things that are offered there? If someone is coming to Rochester Lifestyle Medicine,
right,
what can they expect?
So we have basically two ways of interacting with patients. One is through one-on-one consultations. And we have 12 doctors who work with us and 4 nurse practitioners. They all have day jobs. So when they work for us, they're moonlighting, which is great. We're not quite at the point where we're going to be hiring a lot of people. We are expanding, and I hope that happens someday. But right now, we have these wonderful doctors who really, really love seeing patients one-on-one. So that's one way. You can get a one-on-one consultation. The other way we see people is in group sessions. And we use what's called the CHIP program, which stands for Complete Health Improvement Program. And I know you're a certified facilitator for CHIP.
I am?
Yeah.
I'm just following you, like.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, thank you. It's an honor. You're not stalking. You're following.
No,
right? Yeah, okay.
Big difference.
Big difference. Yeah, right. So CHIP is this wonderful program that's been developed over the last 25 years, and it was developed in Loma Linda, California. And for your listeners who are interested, Loma Linda is one of the 5 blue zones in the world. And do you want me to explain what a blue zone is?
Yes, please. Absolutely.
Okay. So blue zones are places where people tend to live to be 100. And there are 5 official blue zones in the world, and they're Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, Icaria, Greece, then the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica, and then Loma Linda, California.
Right.
And people say, well, what do they have in common? Well, they get most of their calories from whole plants. They all have legumes in their diet. There's various other things that they tend to have in common, like good social support. They see their friends a lot. They're also very active all the time. They're not necessarily exercising. They're not necessarily going to a gym, but they're just moving all day long and getting their exercise that way. So they may live in hilly areas or mountainous areas. Loma Linda is kind of special because it's the only place in the United States, and Loma Linda is the home of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So a lot of Seventh-day Adventists live there, and they have very healthy habits as part of their belief system, and that's why they live so long. So so CHIP, kind of circling back here, CHIP was developed at Loma Linda University by Hans Diehl, who is himself a Seventh-day Adventist, and I became interested for that reason. It's a wonderful program that's actually got scientific evidence behind it. It's got at least 25, or I think up to 35 articles now in the peer-reviewed literature describing how effective it is. And that's important because lifestyle medicine is all about being evidence-based. And although you could argue that it's a new specialty, really, it's been around for 2,500 years because Hippocrates kind of talked about it.
You're so correct. And one of the things is that there's so many things out there that look like lifestyle medicine. They don't have the evidence. You'll hear all sorts of things dressed up like lifestyle medicine. So right. I think that's definitely one of the things is that we do have the evidence to back this.
Right.
That is indeed, it does work. I wanted to talk specifically. I know you and I had talked in the past, and you had talked about doing a lecture on dementia. And I just wanted to tease out a couple of things because this is often something that people ask about. You know, we're getting older, and the statistics that point to dementia, particularly Alzheimer's disease, people get very concerned. And I wondered when you looked at when you were doing your research for your talk, you know, because when people think of lifestyle medicine to treat chronic diseases, they're often thinking diabetes, high blood pressure, that sort of thing.
Sure.
What did you find out there in terms of dementia?
So dementia, and particularly Alzheimer's disease, really is probably a form of vascular disease. Some people have actually referred to it as type 3 diabetes. And so in order to, you would use basically the same treatment, the same lifestyle to avoid dementia and Alzheimer's disease that you would to avoid diabetes and heart disease, namely a whole food plant-based diet, plenty of exercise, you know, a nimble mind. You want to keep using your mind, learning languages, playing music, that type of thing. Staying active, getting definitely off the couch. It's surprising how much exercise actually affects your brain. And that's really important. It's very easy as you get older just to kind of sit around on the couch. And that's really not the right thing to do. I think people need to get outdoors. Personally, I'm a bird watcher. I'm out in the woods a lot. I try to use all my senses. So, you know, I do most of my bird identification by sound. Interestingly, you know, people talk about genetics and the fact that it can be inherited. And actually, if you look at, so in Nigeria, which has a very low rate of Alzheimer's disease, they have a very high rate of the gene that's a risk factor, the ApoE gene. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
So it turns out, even though they have this very high rate of this gene in Nigeria on a kind of a traditional diet, they don't have very high rates of Alzheimer's disease. However, when they come to this country, same Nigerians, same genetics, they have a much higher risk for Alzheimer's disease and are much more likely to get it. And clearly, the difference is not genetics. The difference in that situation is lifestyle, and it's mainly diet. So we have this expression that genetics loads the gun, but environment and diet pull the trigger. And so people will use the excuse, well, and it's about many, many chronic diseases. Well, my whole family has diabetes. I'm going to get diabetes. Or my father died of a heart attack or a stroke. I'm going to have that. Or Alzheimer's. And it's really, you know, it's true. You may be at a higher risk if you are eating a modern industrial diet. But you go back to a very low risk if you eat a more traditional diet. And I think that's really important. And it's exciting news because people don't have to be depressed about it. You can return that locus of control back to the individual, back to the patient. So I think that's terrific news.
It's terrific news. Yeah. It's empowering because there were people who, as you said, they assume that, you know, because everyone else in the family had a particular disease, it's automatic that they're going to get it. So the knowledge that you actually can do something about it by implementing simple changes, I mean, that is really major. Now, one of the things you mentioned in terms of some of the strategies to prevent dementia, you mentioned whole food plant-based diet.
Right.
Define that for me, because I tell you what, there are people who are eating potato chips and Doritos, and in their minds it's plant-based, right? So explain what you mean.
Sure. So that's a great question. So I like to think of vegan as a big circle, which would include chips and chips and soda, which we don't want people eating. But the healthy vegan or the whole food plant-based diet, it's a little circle inside the bigger circle. So let me go back to this. We had the big circle that's all basically vegan, that's all plants. The whole food plant-based diet or whole food vegan or the healthy vegan diet is going to be a smaller circle in there, and that's going to be eating foods as grown or as close to grown as possible. You know, Dr. Deal talks about that, the developer of CHIP, that we want to be eating food as close to as grown as possible and still have it be edible. So, you know, some things can be eaten raw. Most people need to eat a little bit more raw, but we're not asking you to eat raw potatoes. You can cook them. And certainly, you know, grains need to be, for the most part, need to be cooked. but as close to in their natural state. Now that means avoiding things like white sugar, white flour, white rice, and anything that's excessively processed. We actually have people avoid oils. So, and they're often surprised by that. And that includes olive oil. So people say, well, olive oil, canola oil, aren't those healthy? And yeah, those are oils that aren't as bad for you as other oils, but we really don't want you eating oil thinking that it's healthy. If high fat plant foods, if they're whole foods, are generally okay. So, walnuts, but not walnut oil. Corn, but not corn oil. Sunflowers, but not sunflower oil. So, and olives, but not olive oil. And people are always surprised by that because they think olive oil is so healthy. And one of the amazing things that I found is that people say, oh yeah, I drink a quarter of a cup of olive oil at night because I've heard it's so healthy. And
coconut oil, by the way, was one of the latest fads for Alzheimer's. So I'm glad you're clarifying.
Yeah. So, and to kind of simplify it, just ask yourself what you could find if you walked into the fields or into the woods. You're not going to find oil. If you're lucky, you might find a coconut, and that's fine. Go ahead and eat the coconut. Or you might find some nuts. That's great. So that's what we mean when we say whole food plant-based, is basically food that has nothing bad added and nothing good taken away.
And then in terms of quantity, when you're counseling patients or people you come in contact with, are you talking to them about portion sizes, or do you believe that once you're eating the right things, you don't have to be as concerned?
So once you're eating the right things, you definitely don't have to be as concerned. If you really have a real weight issue, we may ask you to kind of move up this. There's a kind of a graph that a guy named Dr. Joel Fuhrman uses. It's nutrient density, and the highest. So it goes from 0, which is white sugar, up to 100, which is kale or any of the greens. And so if you want to eat as close to the top of that scale as you can, so as close to 100, humans really can't survive on kale because it's not calorically dense enough. You can't get enough calories. You'd have to eat like 30 pounds of it to get enough calories. So what you do is you have to eat things like beans, which are, in addition to being nutrient dense, are also more calorically dense. So that's where legumes and grains come into the picture. But if you you want to eat the grains whole if you're trying to lose weight. You don't want to be eating whole wheat bread as a flour product, which is fine for most people who don't have a weight problem. Mm-hmm. But if you're really trying to lose weight, you want to stay away from the things that are calorically dense. So that would mean avoiding processed bread, actually even peanut butter, things like that it's a little easier to get the calories down. And then people ask about smoothies, which I think are okay for kids, but generally speaking, most people should avoid smoothies. And I know Rip Esselstyn says you got to eat we don't drink our calories, and I kind of have to agree with that.
Yeah, you certainly don't get the benefit of all the fiber. Sometimes I know with juicing, for example, people will go on these juicing detox, is what they call it, and you're missing all of the fiber associated with the parts that you throw away. Yeah. Right.
Well, juicing we would never recommend juicing, except for maybe a brief fast. So
okay. Yeah. And then in terms of foods, were there any again, looking at dementia, any types of foods that seem to be better than others?
Interesting. So berries, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries especially. The berries are really sort of nutrient powerhouses. They're filled with these pigments that tend to, for whatever reason, we think it's the antioxidants that are in those. For whatever reason, they're associated with good brain health and just good health in general. So Dr. Michael Greger says you should have at least one serving of berries every day and more if possible. And I'm a firm believer in that. I have blueberries every day. It turns out you can get these great frozen blueberries at our local supermarket that are beautiful. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot easier to manage than fresh blueberries because you don't have to worry about them going bad. Mm-hmm. You can take them out of the freezer, dump a cupful in your oatmeal, and you're good to go. So that's how I get my blueberries every day. And in season, we pick, we have black raspberries and other berries around our yard, which I'll pick in the summer. So, yeah.
All right.
So those are really great. Yeah. Berries.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, your thoughts on supplements, because again, that's another thing you'll see a lot of people do. They'll, there are certain things like curcumin, there's ginkgo, many things out there that people take to prevent. What's your thoughts on that?
So we're not believers in supplements at all. You have to kind of hold me down and drag it out of me to recommend any supplements. And so I'll just be right up front. The only supplement that we recommend for pretty much everybody is a vitamin B12, which is very easy to take. It's extremely cheap. Your liver stores about 3 years worth. So if you forget to take it for a few months, it's not a big deal. But we recommend that you take B12 at least, once a week, preferably once a day. It depends on the dose, and you can look at the bottle. And the other thing is, for most people, they're going to need some vitamin D. And we live in Rochester, New York, where we don't get very much sun. And so we recommend that people get 2,000 units of vitamin D every day. The official recommendation is 800. I'm not sure what you recommend to your patients. Mm-hmm. But that's it for supplements. And beyond that, we really don't recommend supplements. And if we do recommend anything, we don't sell it. We tell people, go to the supermarket or go to the drugstore and buy it yourself. I don't want to be in the position of profiting off anything that we sell as a product, because then people don't know whether to believe us.
Right. I am a firm believer of that. I think that's the way to go. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you go to our website, the bottom of every web page says, teaching skills, not selling products.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's really awesome. I'm wondering, because, I too, like know that, lifestyle medicine really has the potential to turn things around for many, many people out there. I mean, I've even seen it in my own home where, chronic diseases, once people start eating a certain way, those things will go away. But the healthcare system we have right now is not set up to deal with this. So ideally, if you could have a magic wand and change things around, how would you be practicing? What would your practice look like?
Oh, that's a great question, because truthfully, we should be trying to put ourselves out of business. It's not a great business model, right? And that's right. But if we should be empowering our patients to take care of themselves. And I don't think that's going to happen right away. So I think our jobs are safe as far as that goes. But we really need to be teaching people these very simple techniques, which is to eat whole foods, eat exclusively plants, and to basically avoid supplements and medication if they can. Certainly avoid supplements. So obviously, some people are going to have to be on medication. But you'd be amazed. I mean, there's this whole movement of de-prescribing. And we see this especially with diabetes and what's called the metabolic syndrome, where people are they're on high blood pressure medication because their blood pressure's up. They're on oral hypoglycemic for their diabetes, and they probably could just come off all of that stuff if they would just change their diet, but they're not aware of that. So we need to be teaching people, we need to make people aware of it, and we need to not be confusing in our message. And that's a real problem that you see with just the media in general. The media love a good story. So a good story is you contradict what we said last week, right? And it's not really a great story if, what we told you last week, it's true. And next week, yes, what we just told you last month, it's true. Keep it up. That's not a story. The story is, guess what? What we told you last month is completely false and you should do exactly the opposite. Then people get, okay, that's news. But then they say, oh, nobody really knows. I'll just do whatever the heck I want. So there are a lot of things that we actually do know. The evidence has been around for decades. And we should be teaching people that heart disease, at least 90% of it is completely avoidable. Even the American Heart Association says that.
Yes.
Right? That almost all diabetes is completely avoidable. High blood pressure is almost all avoidable. Obesity has not been a huge problem for that long. It's really been since the early 1980s that whole epidemic took off. So people just need to start taking responsibility for their own health and realizing that they're going to be much happier. They feel, people say, oh, I don't want to give up X. I don't want to give up my burgers or whatever. You're going to feel so much better. You're not going to miss it. So,
yeah. For those of you who are just joining us, welcome to Health Talk with Dr. Diane, MD. My guest today is Dr. Ted Barnett, and he is the founder and executive medical director of Rochester Lifestyle Medicine. I want to play devil's advocate for a moment because I don't think there's a lack of information out there, right? there's a lot of information on the internet. Some of it is confusing,
Right.
but there are definitely patients who know this stuff, but they don't practice it. So what do you say? Because I'll tell you, there are also doctors who, there's some of my colleagues who don't really know the details. Because when I went to medical school, right, I still was taught that these chronic diseases are chronic. You don't think that, I'm going to help to prevent the diabetes, or if you get it, that it's even reversible, right? This is what you have. So there's certainly some doctors who don't know better, right? But there's some of them who do, and they'll say to me, if patients are going to listen, all this information is out there. They know this. They're not going to listen. So, is this an uphill battle? Do you think we can get people to where they're really using these simple strategies that can make such a large impact? Or, is it a losing battle?
Well, I think we are winning the battle. I've been involved with this for almost 3 decades now, and the changes have been enormous. The term whole food plant-based has not been around that long, but it's really taken off. The information still needs to permeate the culture, but I doubt if there's very many physicians who haven't heard the term plant-based at this point. And doctors get sick too, and I think in some ways it's best to start with doctors, because all doctors used to smoke. That used to be a big thing, and you're not likely to see any doctors smoking anymore. And back when doctors were smoking, I'm sure it's hard enough getting people to quit smoking now. But if your doctor was smoking, you're sure as heck weren't going to quit smoking if he told you to quit smoking, because you see him smoking, right?
Right. Not only that, years ago you had commercials, cigarette commercials, where doctors.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So one of the examples I give is that, the course I mentioned earlier that I teach, that's a 12 CME course at 12 credits. Chief of cardiology at the local teaching hospitals took our course. His name is Chad Teeters, and he decided to become whole food plant-based himself. He's lost 90 pounds. And he is out there advocating for us. And he said, I never knew I could become so famous just by being a cardiologist that says he's now vegan. And he uses the V word. And we call it the V word because some people are turned off by it.
Oh, yes. I'm always surprised when that's the case. People, you'll say vegan and right away it's like, oh, it's a political thing. It's, yeah.
So we joke about it and call it the V word.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, listen, there may be people out there who are listening in and they want to make a change, right? But they eat the SAD diet, right? The standard American diet. And for some people, it may seem overwhelming to make this change. So I love to leave my listeners a tip of the week. And I'm asking you, if you were to talk with someone who's trying to make a change, but they're a little overwhelmed. They're not sure which direction to go, how to even start. What do you say to someone like that?
Well, it helps to get a buddy, someone else to do it with. And, we in our CHIP programs, we encourage people to either come with their spouse or to come with a friend. And I think that makes a big difference, is to have a friend. I also think it's really important to learn how to cook. If you're not a cook, don't be afraid of cooking. It's a lot easier than you think, and it's a lot harder to get healthy food when you go out. So get a buddy and learn how to cook. And maybe cook together.
Yeah, I actually love that. The tip, the buddy thing is, I've even seen it in my own life. I've always said I'm not a morning person, and now I exercise like at 5 a.m, and it's because I have a buddy who I go to the gym with. My husband is a morning person, so I go with him. And as you say, if you learn to cook, not only will it be healthier, you know exactly what you're putting in there, but it's also so much cheaper. Yeah.
And actually, some of our patients will get together on the weekend, and they'll go to one of their houses, and they'll cook together and make enough for the week. So then they all go home with something that they can have for lunch or whatever. So that's kind of nice. Yeah.
It's a great idea. That's a great idea. All right. So for our listeners who want to contact you, share your contact information once more, please.
So we're Rochester Lifestyle Medicine. It's rochesterlifestylemedicine.com on the internet. And I'm Dr. Veggie.
I love it. Dr. Veggie.
I'm Dr. Veggie at Gmail. It's DRVEGGIE at Gmail. And there, I gave away my personal email address. So go ahead and use it.
All right. Well, I am so happy that you joined us today to share this wonderful information. I really, it is my goal and mission to reach as many people as we can, because this is really information that's, when I look at it, it's so simple on the one hand, but it can really make a huge impact. Any parting words for our listeners and viewers?
So one of the recurring themes in the lectures that we give, we always tell people, eat more fruits and vegetables, and then go outside and run around. So get outside and enjoy the natural world. And spring is coming up, so it's going to be really nice. Just get outside if you can, get into the woods, do a little communing with nature. Those are my parting words.
Wonderful. Yeah. I love that. I love that. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Barnett. And for our listeners, as I tell you each week, your health is your wealth. So please do something healthy for yourselves. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Health Talk with Dr. Diane, MD, on 1570 AM WIGO. Please tune in every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the best in inspirational health information. If you have missed any part of this broadcast, would like to find out more about Dr. Diane A. Thompson, or would like to receive her ebook on stress, please go to drdianethompson.com. That's drdianethompson.com. And like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Dr. Diane A. Thompson. Remember, your health is your wealth, so do something healthy for yourself. Have a great evening.